We have in the building joining us from the three-point conversion, Danny Thompson. He covers the NBA for the channel, for that platform. Please check them out. And I'm going to add him to the stream now. Danny, how you doing, sir?
I mean, A1, when is the last time we've been on a podcast together, man? It's been like almost. I
It's
mean,
been a minute, man.
I think you had hair then. Jesus, it's been a while.
I don't even know if they did podcasts back then.
I had a little bit more last time we were on. But it's glad to have you back. I'm hoping to be more consistent this year, so I'm hoping to definitely have you on as we continue throughout the rest of this NBA season and into the playoffs and beyond. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. We very much appreciate it. So I want to start by asking you this question. You know, I know for a lot of people like myself, I have become so immersed in the NFL and college football throughout the year that I don't pay as much attention to the NBA until the Super Bowl and the season is finally over. So for the person who is awakening from their basketball slumber, what have we missed outside of the things that, you know, Kyrie and LeBron and some of those things? What have we missed while we were watching the NFL? Can you bring us up to speed?
I mean, you get away with it because you're wearing a Kansas City Chiefs shirt tonight. That's what you get away with. All right. Well, the thing is, if you have your bingo card, the Sacramento Kings having the second best record in the Western Conference, then you should be in Vegas making a lot of money right now. Mm-hmm. We're talking, you know, everybody in the league knows about Kevin Durant going to Phoenix. You know, the Lakers, LeBron James, and the injuries, whatever it is, every single year. But the big story to me and across the league this year has been the play of the Sacramento Kings. I wrote about them last week on my Substack, and the Kings are literally the most watchable team on League Pass. If you have a chance to get NBA League Pass, the Kings is worth staying up, and I do pretty much on a nightly basis to almost 1 o'clock in the morning watching the Kings. It's more than just Mark Jones covering the game, which I love Mark Jones, by the way, as a broadcaster. ESPN's Mark Jones. But the style of play, it is an up-tempo style where they use Domantas Sabonis in very similar aspects to what Nikola Jokic is used like in Denver. You have an efficient De'Aaron Fox who's been the most efficient of his entire career. Kevin Huerter is coming off screens, looking like J.J. Redick on the other side. You have Malik Monk coming off the bench, just adding instant firepower. Harrison Barnes, Keegan Murray. They have so many guys on that team, and they're just fun to watch. And they're the underdog story. They're really the underdog story in the league. Mike Brown, you know, LeBron cast him aside in Cleveland. They got to the finals. He went to the Lakers and it failed, and he was exiled. He got under the coaching tree of Steve Kerr for the last couple of years, orchestrated this offense, and the Kings are not only the highest scoring team in the league, A1 and A Ward, they're the most efficient team in the NBA. There's a difference. You can score a lot of points, take a lot of shots, but this team's percentages are literally off the charts. They're literally the most effective, the second best efficient team in field goal percentage in the NBA. And they shoot literally one of the lowest three-point percentages of attempts in the game. That just proves how efficient they've been all year. If you want to look at that storyline, it's been an amazing storyline. And then you have the race for most improved player with Oklahoma City, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Lauri Markkanen of the Utah Jazz. They're fighting for 10th place. If you would have thought the Jazz would have been fighting for 10th place with the roster they had, trading Donovan Mitchell, trading Rudy Gobert, they traded Mike Conley early in the season. They almost traded Karl Malone and John Stockton at one point in the season. So to literally get to be where they are, Lauri Markkanen, who's been thrown away by so many teams, he was given up on in Chicago. Cleveland didn't really have a space for him. He couldn't find really much of free agency. Has gone to Utah and looked like the player we saw in college. He's looking like Dirk Nowitzki. I would say a light version of Dirk Nowitzki in some kind of way, averaging close to 25 and 10 a game, shooting high percentages all over the court, close to 50, 40, 90. And when you're scoring 25 points a game, shooting 50, 40, 90, and he shoots a lot of threes. So that's take away from saying it's a high accolade for someone like that who's coming off an improved year. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, if you look at his numbers across the board, only one player in the history of the league, guys, has averaged over 31 points, over 5.5 rebounds, over 5.5 assists, over a block and a half, and over a steal a game. Can y'all name that one player who did it in a single season?
Jordan.
LeBron James.
Michael Jordan in his double season where he won the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year the same season.
Jeez.
That's the only time in the history of the league this has happened. And he's doing it for Oklahoma City team that doesn't have Chet Holmgren. Josh Giddey is extremely fun to watch at that point guard position. And those are the stories in the Western Conference. In the Eastern Conference is what Joel Embiid's been doing to the entire NBA. You could say he could have won the MVP the last 3 seasons. And this year he's taking down everybody. Stick his assistant back destruction on a nightly basis of what he's doing to everybody. And he makes it look easy. He's making it look easy and make it look effortless. Other storylines. Listen, the New York Knicks once again are fun. The Knicks are fun. Julius Randle scored 57 the other night. He could have scored 60. Jalen Brunson has finally given the city of New York a point guard and somebody to cheer for. And the NBA is always fun when the Knicks are competitive in the East.
Definitely.
They don't have a championship, but if the Garden is on center stage in the playoffs, it's fun to watch. So those are some of the storylines. There's plenty other ones, but some of the ones that are off the top of my head, and one of the ones that if you've been in your slumber after celebrating your Super Bowl, this is what you're coming back to.
Man, I picked the wrong day to wear the Chiefs shirt. I root for Kansas City to do well, so I'm happy that they won. I'm a Niners fan, but I root for KC to do well in every other circumstance. So,
you might as well go ahead and shake. You're in Kansas City.
I'm good. Not bang bang Niner gang till I die.
If you say so.
All right, so I want to jump back to something you mentioned. One of the storylines, Joel Embiid, right? I a couple of weeks ago, right around the time that Perk and JJ Redick kind of had their explosive exchange on First Take, there was this idea that Nikola Jokic was running away with the MVP, that this award already had his name on it. Since then, the Nuggets have started to falter a little bit. The Sixers were on an 8-game winning streak. They just lost last night to the Bulls to end that streak. But in that game, like you said, Joel was killing everything, 37-16. Giannis and the Bucks went on a 15-16 game winning streak. So at this point, from the time you had that blow up on First Take to today, in your mind, how has that MVP race changed?
Before the explosion, I was agreeing that Nikola Jokic was the MVP of the league. It's difficult when you've never had a season like Jokic is having. It's hard because when you've won the MVP back-to-back seasons, it's like, okay, what can you do in a third season? That's why it's rarely happened. Last time our players won 3 MVPs in a row, it wasn't Michael Jordan, it was Larry Bird in the 80s. What can you do different in 3 years? What can you do? And Jokic's third MVP candidate, he's putting up a triple-double.
It's like the Patrick Mahomes effect, right? I mean, it's the Patrick Mahomes effect, right? It's kind of like
it is. It's like, okay, what more can you do? It's like the LeBron James effect. What can LeBron James do differently to give him an MVP trophy? Because he's never won so many. In Jokic's case, in year 3, like if you go back and look at the other 2 MVPs, Jokic won the first year because Embiid missed too many games. It was just like the fact he missed too many games the first year. Last year, Embiid was the MVP until the Sixers acquired James Harden. Embiid's numbers started to tumble a little bit, and Jokic was averaging almost a team with no players around him was putting up 35, 12, and I think 10 assists a game in the last 25-plus games. And this year, Jokic is averaging a triple-double. Now, is the point total like it was last year? No, because Michael Porter Jr. is healthy, Jamal Murray's healthy, Aaron Gordon's playing out of his mind. So it's not the same scoring load, but it's a triple-double. We might have been immune to the fact of, Russell Westbrook's had triple-doubles in consecutive seasons. Like it become numb to it. But when a 7-foot center is averaging a triple-double, shooting 60, 40, 85.
That's nuts.
He's shooting 63% from the floor, 40% from beyond deep, 80% from the line. Like it's insane numbers. That's the 2K by player numbers that we all come together to play in 2K. That's the numbers I'm putting up on 2K on my phone. Okay, I'm putting up those numbers, getting A+. But that's what Jokic was doing. But then, like I said, since the spat, Embiid, he says he's not worried about the MVP. He just wants to take this game to a different level every night. And he's hitting game-winning shots. He's literally dominating everything on that side of the ball. You mentioned Giannis won 15 straight games. And Jokic had statement moments that never happened. You go back to the Brooklyn game, I think about a week ago. He had 2 chances to win the game and missed both of the shots. Now, mind you, he only missed 2 other shots the rest of the game, but those 2 shots he missed with the game on the line. But no, Embiid, I think to me right now, Embiid has overtaken Jokic, even though Denver has the record they have. What Embiid's doing is incredible. Like, he's really, the first player to go 30 and 10. No player has gone 30 and 10, I think, in 35 years. Shaq didn't even go 30 and 10. That should tell you something.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Can you speak to like how much like the athleticism and then those highlight plays really matter in this like MVP conversation? Because I know I've seen like the highlights of Embiid, like literally blocks a guy, the ball comes back, he turns around, he blocks another guy. Like he's literally like, like these plays that you're looking at and you're like, Jokic can't do that. You know what I mean? And it's weird to say that because Jokic is not that type of player, but they do highlight these plays. And are there like moments during the year where like there are MVP moments that you think that are like cataloged throughout the rest of the year that they look back at?
I mean, you look at some games Embiid's had where he's had close to 40 and 50 points in those games with 10, 15, 20, 15 rebounds. He's blocking 2 or 3 shots in those games. It's kind of similar defensively to what David Robinson was doing in the 90s. Where he's just blocking shots on that side of the floor. You got to think, when I say David Robinson in the 90s, you're thinking, he leads league a shot blocking. No, because Olajuwon was there too. Shaq was skinny Shaq was blocking shots. So it's a little different NBA, but he's blocking shots at a high rate. He's defending the rim, but he's also giving you 30 points and over 12 rebounds a game on offense. I think he's second in the league in scoring, I think still behind Luka in scoring. He's carrying an offense, he's grabbing rebounds, he's blocking shots. He's getting the passes every now and then. He has a bigger offensive responsibility. But there are nights when Nikola Jokic goes for 30, 20, and 10 assists in the same game. You look at like he basically affected over 60 points in the game. That's unheard of. That's almost unheard of. It's not like he's chasing down rebounds like Russell Westbrook. It's not that type of triple double where he's out rebounding Steven Adams. No. Jokic has literally been consistent at 12, 13 rebounding game guys. He's getting it on a nightly basis. Their MVP candidacies are different because Jokic doesn't have the defensive numbers. What Jokic has is literally the most efficient season in the history of basketball. That's what his argument is. Embiid's argument is he's not only killing you on offense, but he's also changing the game on defense. Mm-hmm. So that's where the argument comes in, and it's really what your preference is. If you're a stat guy like myself and a data geek, I look at advanced numbers like on a daily basis. So I love advanced numbers because it tells a different part of the story that your usual points, rebounds, assists, blocks, and steals doesn't tell you. And field goal percentage. If you look at those numbers, Embiid's everywhere. But if you look at what goes behind the layers and depth of it, you see so much more. And that's why I started my Substack, because a lot of common basketball fans only see the first layer, but there's so much underlying layers behind it. Trying to merge the two together to show that basketball is more than just those same simple stats that we see every day.
Mm-hmm.
So, Ward, who you got? As it stands today, MVP, who you got?
Jason Tatum. No, but I just said Jason Tatum's name because we've talked a lot about the NBA. I haven't mentioned the Celtics yet, who I personally think are still one of the front runners to win the NBA title this year. So, but no, I'm probably taking Embiid. That's the closest that a Tennessee Vols ever going to get to an MVP, and Tobias Harris plays on the other side of him. So I'm going with Joel Embiid.
Man. I'm going to take Giannis. I understand that a lot of this voting is narrative, and what they've done in the last 3 weeks to a month has been really amazing. But I think Giannis overtaking the Celtics, going on that winning streak, they're likely going to end up with this number 1 seed. I think they have a 2.5 game lead on both Boston and Philly. I'm going to go Giannis. So I'll ask you, Danny, as it stands today, who you got as MVP as it stands today?
It's Embiid by about maybe a length in a horse race. It's close because Joker can go on a week where they just destroys everybody and we're right back to the same conversation all over again. But if I had to place my vote now, it's on Embiid. And it's close.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy like this race has been this close in these back-to-back-to-back years. and I don't think there's a wrong answer. So if Joker were to actually get it, I don't think that's a bad selection by the voters. And if Embiid, it almost feels like Embiid has to get it because one, Joker's already got two, Giannis has one, so it's like okay, it's his turn now. And the way, like you said, as you mentioned, the way he's played down these last couple of weeks has been amazing. But yeah, there's no wrong answer to that. So I wanted, since you did bring up the Celtics, I do want to ask Danny about the Celtics. They were the number one seed in the East for most of this season. They faltered here down the stretch. You got Jaylen Brown, he does this interview with the Ringer. He's like, well, look, man, they tried to trade me. And once you try to do that, like, I understand it's a business, but I'm not sure if these guys really want me. You had the KD trade. His name was brought up last year. When the trade came back around KD this season, the front office had to contact Jaylen and say, look, you're our guy. So there's a lot going on with this team. And that's not even mentioning what happened at the start of the season. What's your take on what's going on with the Celtics as they stand right now?
Well, the Celtics are fine. I mean, there's certain times in the NBA where if certain players become available and you have a chance to get them, you have to have the conversations. You have to. I mean, Kevin Durant becomes available. You have to. You make the phone call. You have to. If Giannis became available tomorrow, you don't think that the Celtics would make a call about Jaylen Brown for Giannis at this point? That's not. I mean, listen, when you have a chance to get a top 5 player, you do it. You have to. And the NFL is the same way. If a player comes available, let's say the 49ers had a chance to get Aaron Donald. God forbid that happens. But yet still it happens.
Yes, God forbid.
You don't think the 49ers would put almost 90% of that roster available to go get Aaron Donald? Yes. Okay. Kansas City would trade for Aaron Donald with the exception of Patrick Mahomes. They would probably trade anybody on that roster to get their hands on Aaron Donald because it's Aaron Donald. In any sport, you do that. The question about Luka Doncic and the MVP conversation, okay, valid. Luka's campaign was kind of hurt twofold. One, he's been injured. He's been injured the last couple of games, in and out of the lineup. And then the same thing that happened with Embiid last year. They added Kyrie Irving, and Dallas has struggled. Dallas is in that vortex that is called the Western Conference seeds, 5 through 12.
Yeah.
They're in that matrix. So they're not standing out in the matrix right now. So unless Luka and Steph Curry, because Curry was in my top 3 for the first third of the season because he was just killing it for the Warriors till he got hurt. Unless Luka and Curry just really just go supernova in the next 2.5 weeks, because the season's ending pretty soon. There's Luka's fighting for all NBA, the first team at this point. Because Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has every right to say he's first team all NBA right now. So he's fighting for that life right now. So
I also think how the Mavericks have been losing too. You have to take that into consideration too. They're blowing like 15, 20-point leads. They're, fumbling the ball on last second shots. The continuity, the visual aesthetics of like Luka in the fourth quarter and the Mavericks winning games is very, very off right now.
I think the one thing with that is that you put in 2 of the best fourth quarter scorers in the league together, and people think on paper it's going to work easily. Both guys are ball dominant. Kyrie Irving leads the NBA in fourth quarter scoring, and it's not close. So when you have that, and then you have, of course, it's Luka Doncic. Like, it's literally Luka Doncic sitting right there. The guy's giving 33 points a game. So you have all of that. It just takes time. You make this trade. The one thing I hate about the trade deadline is there's like 20 games left in the season. So teams have to really figure out how this is going to work in 20 games.
Yeah.
So that's the part that gets to it. I think Dallas is more worried about next month than right now. They're worried to make sure that these two are on the same page with Christian Wood, with Tim Hardaway, with Dwight Powell, with all those guys in the rotation, Maxi Kleber, who came out of oblivion and almost buried Lakers the other day.
Bullock is a dog. Bullock is a dog. I like Bullock.
Yeah, but Reggie doesn't hit water, but like once a week.
He sure don't.
When you look at that team, they have to find the continuity because in the Western Conference, one thing about the West is it's not about team, it's about matchups this year. The wrong matchup gets the wrong team put out in the playoffs. There's no team in the Western Conference that's matchup proof at this current moment, and that includes Phoenix because we don't know what Kevin Durant in Phoenix is because he hasn't played. So we don't know. And Memphis gets Ja Morant back hopefully by the end of the week, and they haven't been all together and healthy. And Dylan Brooks is wherever Dylan Brooks is doing. Denver, if they get the wrong matchup, they can be put out of the playoffs. And the Kings, they've got no playoff experience except for Sabonis, so they're just basically playing with house money. Yeah. So we don't know. We don't know what the Western Conference is. A little bit more concrete in the East, but not so much concrete in the West.
So let's jump back to the West here real quick. And let's talk about, you mentioned Dylan Brooks. Let's talk about the Grizzlies. Ja Morant is scheduled to return to the team after taking some time off and being suspended after having the gun on Instagram. And so my question, and A-Ward, I'll start with you and then come to you, Danny, is can you really turn your life around in 2 weeks? Because like he was going to Florida, Ja Morant, that is, to work on stress and cope with things like that. He came back a couple of days later, got his suspension, sat out, and now he's back. So what exactly are you working on in 2 weeks that Iyanla Vanzant was that like a camp led by Iyanla to get things turned around? Because I just don't know how you find the keys to deal with all of that in 2 weeks' time.
Can you turn your life around in 2 weeks? No. Can you make a conscious decision to turn your life around in 2 weeks? Yes. And I do think that like basketball is probably his entire life. So in the midst of making that conscious decision, taking him away from everything he's ever known, it's probably going to convolute it to the point to where it's more difficult to actually turn your life around, So I think a reality check could set in. I saw his interview today, I think it was, where they asked questions about rehab or something. And he said, to the extent I've never had an alcohol problem, I was just there to help manage stress and different things like that. He's going to have to answer a lot of those types of questions, for the rest of the season, and he's also going to have to continue to play very well. So I think it's to be determined, but I do think you can make a conscious decision to change your life and then keep the right people around you for the rest of the year and see how that works. But no, I don't think that he has to necessarily turn his life around 180 immediately for him to be successful the rest of the year.
I think it's just being a 24-year-old. It's, if you go back to what we know, we all were 24. I'm not going to ask the ages here, but we all know what things that we did when we were 24. When we were 24, we all did dumb things in our 20s. And there's things that we look at it now as we're at a different phase of our life. Like, damn, we really did do some stupid things in our 20s, or early 20s. Ja Morant did some dumb things in his 20s. The only difference is he has a $200 million contract. He's the face of a franchise, and he's a walking target everywhere he goes.
Yeah.
And people say,
and he's in Memphis.
And he's in Memphis. I'm not even going to mention the city. But he's a walking target. So it's like people think, you got to think, not everybody knows how to handle all that. If you go back to what he said in the bubble, he worried about mental health concerns when they were in the bubble. If you go back to the Taylor Brooks interview, he talked about mental health. This is back in the bubble, and that he struggles with that. I've been in locker rooms with players for years in multitude of sports, and you'd be surprised how many guys in their early 20s you think they have it all together, and they don't. I see what Walton's saying, but there's also a saying too, Walton. Rappers want to be basketball players, and basketball players want to be rappers.
That's a fact.
That's what it really is.
That is so true.
Basketball players want the hip hop lifestyle. Most of them do, and almost every rapper wishes they, for the most part, could be on the NBA court. So I think sometimes that's where the lines parallel and they blend. A situation that kind of is similar to this that people aren't talking about is what Carmelo Anthony went through his first couple years in Denver. He was in some real weird, crazy situations, and Carmelo got his life together. He changed the circle. I think someone once told me in life, in order to elevate yourself to the next level, you have to change the people around you. You bring more like-minded people in. It's hard to say leave your friends behind or the people that got you to a certain point, but to get to the next phase of your life, and Josh says he wants to be a billionaire, he wants to be that type of guy. You've got to change that, and you've got to change people around you. I think this time away, I think it taught him what this really is. You don't want to be the first NBA player to go to the streets. Ask Miles Bridges. That life ain't good for you.
That is not.
Man, Miles Bridges, wow. So I want to say this about the Grizzlies, and I understand that they put a lot of pressure on themselves with the things that they've said, things that they've done. But I hope Ja recognizes that for him, in the pursuit of a championship, he landed in the perfect city, right? New York, LA, the Lakers in particular, Boston, there are certain pressures that come with being with that franchise, those franchises, and the expectation of winning. Memphis is going to love you only if you love them back. That's their only requirement. You go back and look at that grit and grind era. That grit and grind era had some good teams, but they were never true threats to win the championship, in my opinion. And they are beloved to this day. If you go there, put out your best effort, and just simply love the city, they're going to love you back. I mean, Zebo, for God's sakes, is a legend in this city. And given his troubles and his struggles early in his career coming into Memphis, and the fact that he was able to be embraced by the city, Ja, I get it, man. You want to win whatever other outside pressures, but as it relates to basketball, that city's going to love you as long as you love them back and give your all. And that's it.
I think the same thing. He's like I say, he's a 24-year-old kid. He's got the way of the world. He's a father. He has a child. He has so much on him. Like I said, imagine what we had to do with $200 million. It ain't easy. Like it's not easy. It's not easy managing that life. But
Facts.
as far as what the Grizzlies are going through, listen, the Grizzlies haven't won anything. Okay, so I can hear everything Dylan Brooks and those boys are saying, and Jared Jackson talking about Dylan Brooks and Ja Morant. They're not scared of anybody. But you have to win playoff series for it to mean something. You can't play one series or maybe win a game in the second round. No. You got to get to the conference finals. You have to get to a game 5 or you got to get to game 6 or game 7, and you have to cause damage. That's why when the Warriors say we're not worried about you, they're not worried about you. No, the Lakers. The only team that teams in the Western Conference have to worry about is Golden State and Los Angeles. Because those are the last 2 teams that made the finals outside of Phoenix, and that was a lucky run for Phoenix. Okay, that was a lucky run that year. They just got lucky.
I want to lead into this as we get ready to wrap up our time with Danny Thompson here. I want to ask this one last question. One last note on the Warriors. I want to bring this up too. The Warriors, and I don't know if I said this in the last episode, the Warriors, if they made the playoffs, they've either since 2014, they were eliminated by the Clippers in 2014. If they ever since then, they make the playoffs, it's championship or finals loss. No Western Conference team has eliminated them from the playoffs since 2014. I don't count the play-in loss. To me, that's not the playoffs. It's the play-in to the playoffs, right? So the Grizzlies eliminated them in the play-in a couple of years ago. But if they get into a 7-game series, no one's defeated them. So, Danny, as we wrap up our time here, I want to ask you one last question. There's been a lot of discussion this year about the state of the league. The All-Star game, load management. Damian Lillard had an excellent interview on JJ Redick's podcast talking about the NBA is worse today than it was when he started because of leadership and veteran talent. So from your perspective, as someone who is staying up watching Kings basketball till 1 a.m, salute. I'm there some nights too. I got league pass. Kings are very entertaining. From where you sit, how do you assess the state of the league at this point of the season?
Damian has a lot of points, a lot of good points. There was a statement to actually go back to Dylan Brooks. It was about when they were talking about leadership in the Grizzlies locker room. They need leaders. But Dylan made a point, and it was a really good one, a very underrated point, where he said that if you want us to go grab a veteran, who are we talking about here? Dwight Howard. We're talking about, DeMarcus Cousins. We're talking about Carmelo Anthony. Those guys aren't really here to try to help lead. Those guys want to get back in, and they want to play. A real leader is someone like Udonis Haslem. There are very few Udonis Haslem in this league right now. You can probably count them on one hand. How many guys, Udonis Haslem and Taj Gibson, those guys that are just don't say, they might not play very much, but they hold such a veteran presence in the locker room. I wish a team would go sign Isaiah Thomas. He's the same way he did in Charlotte last year with LaMelo Ball. There are very few guys in the league that just want to be able to help the next generation. So Dame is right. There's not leaders in locker rooms anymore because there's no veteran. Every veteran wants to be part of that. I'm playing every night. I want to be on TV every night. very few guys want to lead. So Dame is right. As far as the state of the NBA, this has been the most fun the league has been in a long time. This has been the most fun. You guys joined the party a little bit too late. That's okay. We still got drinks at the bar, but this is the most fun because, as we mentioned before, there are 8 teams in the Western Conference still fighting for 2 playoff spots and not trying to get in the playing game. Like nobody wants to play the Lakers or the Golden State Warriors in a playing game situation because not only are you playing the Lakers, you're playing LeBron James, you're playing the referees, you're playing Steph Curry, you're playing the Warriors, and you better hope you're not playing them at home. Yeah, because if you get Golden State on the road, Golden State's done anyway.
Yeah,
they can't go on the road. But there's so many storylines. It is so much more fun. You got teams that are bad. That happens everywhere. But there's not one team that we can say right now that's going to say, "Yep, they're going to hold that Larry O'Brien Trophy in June." There isn't one. There's too many teams that have enough to say we could win it, including Ward Celtics. They got enough, even with Jaylen Brown being unhappy.
And you got the Spurs and the Rockets beating teams that are fighting for playoff bids right now. And you're looking at them like, how? You've won 16 games all year. What is going on?
Spurs fans are getting angry by the minute they keep winning games.
Yes.
Oh, I think I might have lost Danny there. Dang, I was going to have it if we did lose him. I thank him for joining us. I think we did lose him. So I thank him for joining us, man. Check him out. I have to get his Substack. I'll get it posted in the comments.